During Christmas, I announced I was pregnant. My mother didn't even blink before spitting venom across the table and humiliating me in front of everyone. She stared at me with this cold, disgusted expression and said, "I don't want you or that bastard in this family. You're dead to me, and just so you know, you're out of the will." There was no argument, no defending myself, no yelling. I didn't respond. I didn't cry. I didn't plead for her acceptance or try to justify my life choices. Instead, I did the only thing left to do. I stood up, placed the wrapped Christmas gift I brought for her right in front of her plate, and walked out without looking back. And later, when she finally opened that box, she screamed nonstop. I guess before I take you into how this all unfolded, I should tell you who I am, or who my family believes I was supposed to be. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. My name is Amelia Carter, and growing up in the Carter household wasn't just difficult, it was a competition. Every holiday, every birthday, every achievement, everything was a measurement of worth. My mother, Judith Carter, believed that respect was earned through obedience, not love. She wasn't physically abusive, no. She was the kind of mother who weaponized words and expectations. She constantly reminded me that success was the only currency she respected. Straight as? Expected. A scholarship? Bare minimum. A job? Well, it better be impressive. My older brother, Ethan, thrived under her rules. He was her golden child, successful, polished, and exactly what she wanted. Meanwhile, I was always labeled the emotional one, the rebellious one, the problem she had to manage. But the truth was, I wasn't rebellious. I was just human. I wanted love, connection, acceptance, none of which existed in my family unless it came with conditions attached. So, by the time I turned 25 and started truly living my own life, I realized something painful. My family only valued me as long as I lived according to their script. And now? I had officially disappointed them in the biggest way possible. I fell in love with a man they didn't approve of, someone who didn't come from money, someone who didn't have a fancy education, someone real. His name is Lucas, and he's the kindest person I've ever met. He's not rich. He's not powerful. But he cares. About me. About us. About the baby we created. And to my mother, that was unforgivable. That Christmas dinner was supposed to be my fresh start, my hopeful announcement, the moment I shared joy. But instead, it became the moment everything collapsed, and the moment I finally woke up. We were all sitting at the long oak dining table, candles lit, expensive wine poured, Christmas linens neatly arranged. My mother loved appearances. She loved staging perfection. Anyone looking from the outside would assume we were this warm, wealthy, functional family. But the truth? We were decorative, hollow, fragile. When dessert came out, I took a breath and said the words I had rehearsed in the mirror days before. I'm pregnant. At first, there was silence, not the surprised kind, but the disappointed kind. The silence where people judge before they speak. My father cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact like he always did when conflict arose. Ethan blinked at me, trying to decide whether to support me or follow the family script. And my mother? She smirked, that cruel, practiced expression she used when she believed she'd discovered proof of my failure. "What a shame," she whispered, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Just when I thought maybe you'd finally become someone worth being proud of." But she wasn't done. People like her never stop at just one blow. Then came the sentence that would change everything. "I don't want you or that bastard in this family. You're dead to me, and you're out of the will." Lucas reached for my hand under the table, squeezing gently, reminding me silently that I wasn't alone. And maybe once upon a time, I would have begged her to understand, or cried, or tried to explain why love mattered more than her approval. But something inside me shifted in that moment. I realized she wasn't rejecting me, she was freeing me. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and placed the wrapped gift I had brought, the same gift I had spent weeks picking out, right in front of her plate. Then I walked away. No tears. No goodbye. No hesitation. Just quiet strength. And the best part? She had no idea that the moment she opened that present, her perfect world, the one she controlled so carefully, was about to collapse. When Lucas and I walked out of that house, the cold December air hit my face harder than any words my mother had thrown at me. But for the first time in my life, the chill didn't bother me. Instead, it felt like something inside me finally snapped free, like chains I didn't even realize I'd been dragging had suddenly fallen away. We got into the car, and I remember sitting there quietly, staring at the glowing Christmas lights outlining the house I grew up in. It looked warm from the outside, soft lights, garlands, wreaths, but inside? It was all ice. Lucas turned on the heater and looked at me gently. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was unsure, but because I was processing what just happened. Then finally I whispered, "Yeah, I am." And I meant it. The days after that dinner were quiet, strange, and emotional, but not in a bad way. I expected to feel regret or sadness, but instead, I felt a clarity I had never experienced before. For years, I held on to the idea of what a family should be. I believed things would eventually get better, my mother would soften, my father would speak up, my brother would see me as more than a disappointment. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Some families aren't built on love, they're built on power. And mine was exactly that. Growing up, everything in our house was about appearances. My mother cared about reputation more than connection. She would host charity events, smile for photos, and talk about generosity, but behind closed doors, she treated love like a contract. My father, Daniel, wasn't cruel, he was simply absent. He went along with whatever my mother said, not because he agreed, but because silence was easier than conflict. He was a man who lived his entire life avoiding confrontation, and that included defending his children. My brother Ethan wasn't a villain. He was just conditioned. When you're raised being told you're the favorite, you learn to protect that status. So he didn't challenge my mother, not when she insulted me, not when she mocked Lucas, and certainly not when she disowned me. A week after Christmas, I stopped waiting for anyone in my family to reach out. I blocked the group chat, muted calls from the family estate manager, and focused on building a life with Lucas. We moved into a small 2-bedroom rental house. It wasn't fancy, no marble counters or designer appliances, but it was warm, peaceful, real. Sometimes at night, I'd sit in the living room with a cup of tea and place my hand over my stomach, imagining the tiny heartbeat growing inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living for approval, I was living for myself. And for my child. 2 months passed before my mother finally reacted, but not in the way you might expect. One afternoon, I received a phone call from an unknown number. When I picked up, the voice on the other end sounded like she had swallowed acid. Amelia. It was my mother. I didn't say anything. I just waited. She took a deep breath, like she was preparing a courtroom speech. "I opened your gift." Her tone wasn't angry, it was shaken. Then she let out a short, shaky laugh, not from amusement, but disbelief. "How dare you?" she whispered. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. "How dare I what?" "You betrayed this family," she hissed. There it was, her favorite narrative. Not her cruelty. Not her rejection. Just the idea that I had somehow wronged her. What was in that box, she continued, was malicious, calculated, and vile. I almost smiled. "Mom," I said calmly, "everything in that box was legal. And truthful." She went silent. I could hear her breathing, sharp, angry, frightened breathing. Then, in that clipped tone she used when speaking to inferiors, she snapped. "You will regret this. You think you're smart? You think you have the upper hand?" "No," I replied quietly. "I don't think it. I know it." Another pause. Then she nearly yelled. "Where did you even get those documents?" That confirmed it. She didn't think I might expose her. She knew I could. Without another word, she hung up. When Lucas came home that evening, I told him about the call. He didn't react with excitement or revenge-fueled celebration. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You didn't do any of this to hurt them. You did it to protect our future." And he was right. Because what my mother didn't know, what she never expected, was that while she spent years controlling everyone around her, I was quietly learning how to protect myself. And that Christmas gift? The one that made her scream? It was just the beginning. After that phone call, the silence from my family wasn't peaceful, it was strategic. I knew my mother wasn't done. People like her don't accept consequences, they fight them. And when they feel threatened, they don't attack physically, they attack reputations. About a week later, things started happening, not loudly, but quietly, like shadows creeping under doors. First, my old coworkers reached out, sending uncomfortable messages. "Hey, your mom called the office. Everything okay?" Then my college mentor emailed. "Your mother said you're emotionally unstable. I'm concerned." She was trying to paint me as irrational, unfit, irresponsible, someone whose decisions shouldn't be taken seriously. Lucas saw me reading the messages and sighed. "She's trying to isolate you," he said. "Make you feel surrounded." I nodded. That's how she always wins. But this time, I wasn't playing defense. Before I go further, you should know what was in that gift box, the thing that made her scream. Inside wasn't jewelry. Not a photo. Not a sentimental memory. It was proof. Documents. Copies of emails. Financial reports. Signed statements. And a notarized packet addressed to someone very important. For years, my mother had been hiding something. Millions of dollars of tax fraud and illegal asset transfers. Growing up, I never planned on using that information because I never planned on ending up on the opposite side of her. But the thing about learning in silence is that people forget you are paying attention. My mother always assumed I was the emotional one, too soft, too naive to understand the world she controlled. But she never realized I inherited something from her, something she never meant to teach. How power works. After her attempts to smear me failed to intimidate me, she changed tactics. One afternoon, I opened the door to find my brother, Ethan, standing there in his expensive coat, holding a folder. He didn't step inside. He didn't smile. He looked exhausted, like someone forced into a role he didn't want. "I need to talk to you," he said. So we sat on the small front porch and he handed me the folder. "It's a non-disclosure agreement," he explained. I didn't touch it. He sighed. "Mom knows you have information. She's scared, Amelia. She wants you to sign this so we can handle things privately." "Handle?" I repeated. He nodded. "She'll reinstate you in the will. She'll apologize in her way. You'll have financial security. You'll get part of the estate. Just let it go." Part of me expected anger. But instead, I just felt sad. Because in that moment, I realized something. Ethan wasn't here because he believed in fairness. He was here because he believed protecting her power protected his future. "What about Dad?" I asked softly. Ethan blinked, surprised. "Dad? What about him? Does he care? Does he even know?" Ethan shook his head like a tired teacher responding to a child. "Dad follows Mom's lead. Always has." I already knew that, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. I pushed the folder back toward him. "No." His jaw tightened. "Do you understand what you're doing?" "Yes," I said quietly. "For the first time in my life, I do." He stood abruptly, frustrated. "You're making a mistake. Mom won't stop." "I'm counting on that," I replied. He froze. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. Because he knew something she didn't. I wasn't scared of her anymore. 3 days later, the next move came, not from my mother, but from her attorney. A formal letter arrived, stating that if I attempted to use or expose the documents in that gift box, my mother would pursue legal action. Lucas read it over twice, then looked at me. "She's panicking," he said. I nodded. And panicking people make mistakes. But I didn't rush. I didn't threaten. I didn't respond emotionally. Instead, I did one simple thing. I forwarded the entire packet, the same one that was in the gift box, to the right federal office. Quietly. Legally. Fully documented. No threats. No warning. No drama. Just action. Because this wasn't revenge out of rage. This was accountability. Weeks passed. Then one morning, while Lucas and I were making breakfast, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Federal Investigations Division. My heart raced, but not with fear, this time it was certainty. I answered. A calm voice said, "Ms. Carter, thank you for submitting the documents. We have officially opened an investigation." And in that moment, everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in quiet, irreversible truth. My mother wasn't untouchable anymore. Her world, the one built on image, control, and fear, had finally met someone who refused to bow. And now, the consequences were coming. The investigation didn't explode overnight, it unfolded slowly, like a fuse burning toward a bomb. At first, everything seemed normal. My family carried on with their perfect public winter routine, country club brunches, charity fundraisers, staged holiday photos. But beneath that polished surface, cracks were forming. My mother stopped posting online. My father canceled business trips. Ethan stopped answering texts altogether. Silence wasn't avoidance anymore, it was fear. Then one cold February morning, just as the sun was rising, the fuse finally reached its end. Lucas and I were sitting in the living room when my phone lit up, not with messages, but with notifications from news outlets. Local businesswoman under federal investigation. Carter Foundation finances flagged for review. Possible tax evasion and fraud allegations. My hands shook, but not from nerves. From relief. Everything I had tried to prove, everything they tried to bury, was now public. Lucas gently squeezed my knee. "You okay?" I nodded. I didn't think justice would ever feel possible. Before I could process the headlines further, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't unknown. It was Ethan. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I answered. His voice was frantic, not polished, not calm, not controlled. "What did you do, Amelia?" I let the silence stretch. What needed to be done, I finally answered. "You've ruined everything," he snapped. "Mom could go to prison. The company might collapse. Do you even understand what this means for us?" "For you," I corrected softly. "This means something for you. Because everything in that estate was never ours. It belonged to the people she stole from." He let out a long breath, half anger, half disbelief. "You always wanted revenge," he accused. "No," I said quietly. "I wanted freedom." Then I ended the call. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation escalated quickly. Subpoenas were issued. Accounts were frozen. Legal teams swarmed around my family like flies searching for decay. And people noticed. Neighbors stopped making polite small talk. Friends distanced themselves. Business partners withdrew. The perfect image my mother spent decades manufacturing was crumbling, and there was no controlling the narrative anymore. Then came the day everything shifted permanently. It was early March when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it expecting a package or a neighbor, but instead, there stood my father. Not dressed in his usual tailored suit, not polished, not confident. He looked older, smaller, defeated. "Amelia," he said quietly. For a moment, I didn't know whether to let him inside. But something in his eyes, something I'd never seen before, softened me. Humility. So I stepped aside and let him in. Lucas stayed nearby, not interfering, just present. My father sat down slowly at the dining table and folded his hands. "I owe you an apology," he began. The words sounded foreign coming from him. "I should have protected you. I should have spoken up at Christmas. I should have been your father, not a shadow standing behind your mother." I didn't interrupt. He continued, voice shaky. "Your mother built our life on control and fear. And I let her, because it was easier than confronting the truth." I looked at him, not with hate, but with a quiet sadness. "It wasn't just easier," I said gently. "It benefited you." He closed his eyes because he knew I was right. When he opened them again, they were wet. "Your mother received a court summons this morning," he whispered. "She will likely stand trial." I took a slow breath. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He swallowed. "A chance," he answered. "A chance to make something right." For a moment, I didn't speak. Then I asked the question that had hovered in my chest since childhood. "Did you ever love me? Truly?" His answer didn't come quickly, and that delay told me more than his words ever could. Finally, softly, he said, "Yes, but I never showed it the way a father should." I nodded, not because it healed everything, but because it acknowledged something real. He stood to leave, pausing at the door. "You may never forgive us," he said quietly. "But please know this. You didn't destroy the family. You freed it." Then he left. That night, I lay awake with my hand resting over the gentle curve of my belly. For the first time in my life, the future didn't feel controlled by someone else. It felt mine. And as my baby moved softly beneath my hand, I whispered into the darkness, "We're rewriting everything." The months that followed were quieter, not empty quiet, but peaceful quiet. The kind that feels like deep breathing after years of suffocating. I didn't follow every headline or update from lawyers. I didn't obsess over hearings or court filings. For the first time in my life, I wasn't tied to my family's chaos. I was building something different. Something real. My pregnancy progressed, and our little rental house slowly transformed into a home. Lucas painted the nursery soft sage green and assembled every piece of furniture himself, refusing to let me lift anything heavy. Friends, not blood, but chosen family, threw us a small baby shower. There was laughter, warmth, love. No competition. No judgment. Just support. And every now and then, I'd catch myself thinking, so this is what family is supposed to feel like. 3 months after my father visited, the trial officially began. My mother didn't go quietly. She hired the best lawyers money could buy. She denied everything. She blamed accountants, employees, even distant relatives. But the evidence was undeniable. I wasn't subpoenaed to speak. I had already done everything necessary. The truth was documented, verified, and undeniable. Ethan tried reaching out once more, his tone different this time. Not angry. Not demanding. Just tired. He sent a message. "I never wanted it to go this far. I wish we could have been different." I stared at those words longer than I expected. For years, I envied him, the golden child, the favorite, the one who never had to fight for approval. But now I saw him clearly. He wasn't free, he was trapped. Living a life designed for someone else. Performing a role instead of owning an identity. And even now, when everything was falling apart, he still didn't know who he was without her voice guiding or controlling him. I typed back a single sentence. "You still can be different." He never replied. The day the verdict was announced, I wasn't at the courthouse. I was in a hospital room, holding a brand new life in my arms. My daughter, Harper Rose, entered the world exactly on her due date, as if she understood the importance of timing. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, her soft breaths warm against my chest. Lucas sat beside me, tears in his eyes, not from fear, but from overwhelming love. "You did it," he whispered. I smiled. "No," I corrected softly. "We did." A nurse entered with paperwork and a small smile. "Congratulations," she said. "Healthy baby, healthy mom." She paused. "Oh, and someone left flowers at the front desk for you." I frowned. "From who?" She handed me the card. "For Amelia and Harper, congratulations. I'm proud of you. Signed, Dad." I closed my eyes, not because it hurt, but because it healed something deeper than apology ever could. 2 weeks later, after settling into motherhood, I opened a final envelope, one I had been expecting. It was from the court. Inside was a clean legal statement confirming everything. My mother was convicted of multiple financial crimes. The family estate was being liquidated. Restitution was ordered. Investigations into additional hidden assets were ongoing. At the bottom of the document was one final detail that made me exhale slowly. Her will was invalidated. Not because of disowning me, but because the entire thing was built on fraud. That sentence felt poetic, not angry, not vengeful. Just true. Her legacy wasn't stolen by me. It collapsed under the weight of her own choices. One afternoon, weeks later, I drove to a quiet overlook near the coast, a place Lucas had shown me before Harper was born. The ocean stretched endlessly, waves crashing with a rhythm that felt like forgiveness. I held Harper close and whispered, You will never grow up afraid of being imperfect. She slept peacefully against me, unaware of the history she had already rewritten simply by existing. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who tiptoed around emotions, begged for approval, and measured her worth by someone else's standard. And then I thought about the woman I had become. Not because of revenge. Not because of justice. But because I finally chose myself. Because I finally chose peace. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lucas wrapped an arm around me. "What now?" he asked. I smiled, watching the sky shift into soft pastels. "Now," I said quietly, "we build a life that feels like love, not fear." He kissed the top of my head. "And we never look back," he added. I nodded. Never. And in that moment, with my daughter in my arms, my partner beside me, and a future untied from the past, I finally understood. Walking away wasn't losing family. It was making room to create one. A real one. A chosen one. A better one. If you stayed with me till the end, thank you. Stories like this aren't easy to live, and they're definitely not easy to tell. But sometimes, the truth deserves a voice. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more real stories just like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, so you never miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.